Hello, and welcome back to the Dreamland, this wonderful space. For folks who don't know me, my name is Arthur Bergeron. I am not from here, but I come here a lot, and I've been coming here a lot now for about 15 years. I'm an elder law attorney. That's my day job. So they asked me to moderate this because during that time, I have been very heavily involved in with the Island Home, because all I do for my day job is elder law. So I have about 2,300 clients. I have median client age is 75, and I have about 150 here on the island. And so as a result of that, I have been to a lot of nursing homes, like 50, 60 nursing homes, and I've been to the Island Home an awful lot. And so they asked me to moderate because they knew of my involvement in it, but I promised that, and for people who have gone to my seminars at the Salt March or have seen me on TV, they said, now you can't be long-winded when you open this, you know? So I'm just gonna say, I'm just gonna make an observation about our Island Home. It is the greatest nursing home I've ever been to. I remember the first time I went, and the front door wasn't working, you know, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. But it's so good. The reason why it is so good is for three reasons. One, because it's not for profit, so people are not trying to cut corners. It is locally controlled, and it's small. There is no nursing home like this that I've ever seen. And so to open with a thought, because I've been doing elder law for a long time, I have a lot of clients now who die. I have about 2 clients who die about every week, actually. I was just speaking to someone here on the island whose husband died last week. And so I see people all the time who are going through frailty which leads to death, frailty from which you don't get better. If you are frail and you know that you're frail, or don't because you're that frail, and you can't be at home. You just can't be at home for medical reasons. You just can't. There is no better place to be and to live your remaining days, whether that's 2 years, 1 year, 3 weeks, to live those days than our Island Home. So, with that in mind, from, once again, an off-islander, I want to introduce our wonderful panel, Craig Piper, who has been around a lot over the last year and a half talking about this plan. Peter Schaeffer from the Finance Committee, who has been around even longer than that, right? Who's been kind of avid person. Bob Eisenstein, whom I met about 2 years ago when I was doing stuff regarding our Island Home. The name of his company is EF Senior Care. And they have been managing our Island Home now for, what, 2.5 years, about? Wow, time marches on, you know, as you get older, right? Karen Bain, who's the Chief Nursing Officer now at the Island Home at EF Senior Care. Nathan Chubb, occupational therapist with Preferred Therapy, which provides the physical therapy at our Island Home. And my old friend Kathy Greeter, whom I've worked with, who is, well, she's just like one of those people that everybody just knows. So I don't have to even kind of introduce Kathy Greeter. So I have been given a set of questions to ask these panelists, and these questions, I am told, were developed because of the jillion meetings that these folks have been doing over the last year, a year and a half. So they're kind of a compilation of the questions that people have asked them, right? During those various discussions, right? I'm gonna start off with my friend, Kathy Greeter.
Thank you all. Thank you for coming today.
I have to ask you a question, right? Now, I'm not used to doing this part, right? I'm just used to kind of talking, but I have to pay attention here. Starting with Kathy, president of our Island Home. Where, by the way, I was on the board for many years. So, it was one. So, and that, by the way, if that tells you something, what nursing home ever has a friends group? I'd never seen it before, right? It's just a unique aspect of the Island Home. So, president of our Island Home, how many years has our Island Home been in existence?
Thank you all for coming today. The Island Home's beginning goes back to the Quays Asylum, which functioned from the 1820s to 1844. Finally, in 1905, the town's Board of Overseers renamed the asylum Our Island Home and defined its mission as to provide a tender, loving care of the infirm, aged, a role fulfilled with grace and real beauty to this day. After the nursing home residents moved into the new building in 1981 and took the name of Our Island Home with them, a 5-year effort to transform the old asylum building into an affordable housing for Nantucket's independent seniors and came to fruition, and the Landmark House opened. So that was formerly the Island Home. Since then, the Island Home has provided a skilled nursing facility environment for Nantucket seniors who, because of their physical or cognitive disabilities, could no longer reside at home. And during this time, Our Island Home has provided a safe and welcoming environment for these residents in a location where they can still connect with their families, friends, and the members of the community. Nantucket voters who have been supporting Our Island Home for years have agreed that this important Nantucket institution should move to a new building that can provide these services effectively.
And so these are great because these are a lot of the questions that I always wondered myself, but was like afraid to ask. So Kathy, over the long history of Our Island Home, how many patients have lived at the nursing home?
So it's difficult to answer this question because records
I thought I was going to get the answer tonight.
Records aren't available from the 1800s. But according to medical records at Our Island Home, the number of long-term care residents over the last 30 years is approximately 886 residents. People who have been served in the short-term rehab program are as follows. 12 residents were discharged to home in 2023, 14 residents in 2024, and 7 in 2025, which is to date. It's expected that in the future, many more island residents will be using Our Island Home for their short-term and long-term medical needs. The short-term rehab portion has been such a boom to the Island Home, and it will continue in the future, and you'll hear more about that later in this questionnaire.
One more. Kathy, what is your best educated estimate of how many Nantucket families have utilized the facility over the years?
Generations of Nantucket residents have been cared for at Our Island Home. In the 1950s, my husband's great-aunt was a resident, and his grandmother was there in the 1980s. My mother was a resident from 2018 to 2022, and that's why I'm here today, because the care my mother received at the Island Home has made me a dedicated person to keep this Island Home on Nantucket. So it's difficult to come up with a figure for a total number of families served. Sorry.
No, but once again, so raise your hand. How many people here have not ever walked into Our Island Home?
Wow.
Have not ever walked into Our Island. So most people have been there, And unless you need it, of course, you tend to not, except that it's such a small island that people always seem to find people that they're visiting there, right? That's kind of inevitable. So thank you very much, Kathy. To my friend Bob Eisenstein, founding partner and president of EF Senior Care, and just a nice guy. So who's been here for several years now.
You're nice, too.
What is the current staff count at Our Island Home, and what is your estimated employment count over the last 3 to 4 decades?
So our budgeted number for staffing is right around 70 employees. We can range anywhere from 65 to 75. And I think if your question was, what will be the staff count in the new building, we really anticipate about the same number of people. But I just wanted to point out one quick thing. For those of you who have not been at Our Island Home, Michelle Monroe is here in the audience. We're offering individualized tours because, as you'll hear tonight, I think the real magic is knowing what the nursing home is like. You're not going to know you need it until you need it. And I'm so... It's nice to see so many people have been there, but I just wanted to, in case we forgot to offer that. Michelle's here tonight if anybody wants to take a tour. But that's the number that will continue probably in the new building, Arthur.
Thank you. And by the way, I thought I saw my friend Karen Johnson here, and I remember kind of early on when we were talking about the Island Home. What was interesting about all of the approach was that you had folks who were in a place where, once again, it isn't like beautiful, right? And so they're kind of working with what they have architecturally, right? And so they were really trying to, but it's worked very well. So they were really trying to figure out how you could build into the architecture all of the things that they need to be working around now, so that you're really getting the delivery of the quality of service, but just in a much better environment. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. Okay, so Bob, is it fair to say that the impact of our island home is much higher than 45 beds?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that a loaded question?
It's a loaded
Obviously,
question.
it's a loaded.
Kathy already alluded to this. One thing that happens when you have short-term residents coming in and out is the number of people that we actually see at our island is much larger than 45 beds. A lot of people think the old model, everybody's there for long-term chronic care and they stay there. But that's in fact not true. So the total count of patients this year, for example, in 3 months, that we've already seen in total is probably about 75 patients. And you mentioned the number of discharges. We're on a pace this year, if you multiply that times 4, that'll be about 28 to 30 discharges. That's a change from the way the nursing home was in the past. So people are coming in. Nate's going to talk about this quite a bit. So because of our short-term rehab, I think the number you used, 886 total number of people that have benefited from being at our island home over the years. And that number is going to increase because of the short-term rehab.
And by the way, I know that when I originally talked to Bob about 2.5 years ago, that was one of the things that was one of his stated goals, was to change that balance because of the change in the reimbursement structure as a result of that balance. Because if you've got more short-term folks, those folks are being paid by on Medicare as opposed to either private pay or on Mass Health. And kind of everybody in the business knows, every Mass Health client in every nursing home loses you money. And it's being subsidized by the Medicare folks or the private pay folks. And so it was really, really hard, unless you had a short-term care component, to kind of balance the budget better. And I know that was Bob's stated goal, and it is sounding like that you've been moving to that even with the current Our Island home, but your sense is, given the new structure, that you could go much further in that regard. Peter Schaeffer, member of the Finance Committee, what is the estimated cost? Well, there's a big one for our new Our Island home, and please share your thoughts regarding building materials, tariffs projected to increase overall costs.
First off, let me say that being on the Finance Committee, when I first was introduced to Our Island home, because I had never even been there until I was on the committee for the new Our Island home, I voted against this for the first $8.5 million that we voted for to hire the architects to do the drawings. Yeah, I can tell you that. Craig, the architect.
But architectural money, it's just money down the drain.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's just.
But as time went on, and I talked to people who have had relatives in Our Island home or have been in there themselves, and plus my many visits to Our Island home, listening to the residents, I realized this is an important part of the foundation of this island. If we don't build a new Our Island home, the current Our Island home will be closed down sometime between now and, 2030, something like that. We don't meet the requirements for a skilled nursing facility, and we need to in order to go forward. In terms of cost, the cost is going to be the biggest project that Nantucket's ever done. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is, since COVID, everything has skyrocketed. And as you all know, that on Nantucket, when something skyrockets on the mainland, it blasts up to space on Nantucket. We don't have the availability of so many people who know how to work on Nantucket. So when we put out the bids, you're going to get people that have either worked here before or are going to be able to, the general contractor will be able to lead the subs into the project. It's not like when you're on the mainland when you have people knocking at your door to do the project. Here, sometimes you have to knock on their door. So it is a difficult situation to look at. The other thing, the number. So the number is $134 million. This is the new number after everything we've gone through. Now that includes, first off, the easiest ones. There's $10 million in contingencies, $4.5 million for tariffs. Here today, gone tomorrow. Who knows? So we have $4.5 million in there for tariffs, and we have $5.5 million in there for cost overrides. The interesting thing about this project is the way we're running it, the number that we get from the builder is the number. They cannot raise the price. So assuming we sign the deal in September and we start construction in September, the price will remain the same. Not like every other project that we've done on this island when, you'll see we're going to the select board for another 10 million or another 20 million. I mean, this is a big number, but it's the number and it's not going to change. And the other thing is, I think we all need to get used to everything's going to start with 100. I mean, it's just to build on this island is very difficult. And the numbers, 100 is the new 50. And it's scary. If we had done this when we first talked about it 10 years ago, it would have been $60-70 million. So it is a shame. So anyway, let me just talk a little bit about the 134. That includes $6 million that we're paying to Sherburne Commons for the use of the land. Even though we own the land, it's in their contract that they can build on that land or do something on that land. They could build a skilled nursing facility, actually. But we paid them $6 million as part of this deal to alleviate any problems we might possibly have going forward. $6.5 million is for construction of the Sherburne Commons staff housing. We have to knock down or move the staff housing that's on the project because it's right where we're going to build the nursing home. So that's going to be moved to the sewer beds area down there, and that's going to become town housing. And it's $2.4 million to move it. We have $4.5 million in there for a possible purchase of 2 cottages that are closest to us from Sherburne Commons property. And that's if the people that live in those say that they can't live there anymore for whatever reason, it's too noisy or whatever. We'll buy that and we'll use that for town housing. Anything we can do for town housing is great. We need all the space we can get. And by the way, the total we get a total of 22 new bedrooms by the time we're done with this with the 2 projects. The $10 million contingency we talked about with the tariffs and the overbuild. There's $12.5 million in here for the architects, which I'll say the architects, the owner's project manager, which we have on the project, and the construction manager fees. I mean, you have to return your car that you just bought. And there's $3.1 million in there for furnishings and medical equipment. So actually, the cost to build the building is $89 million. It's not that that's not a big number, but it's a lot better than 134, and that's what we're going to be paying. So that's that.
And so, and what's on the warrant? What is the warrant question to authorize bonds for up to $134 million?
Well, the Finance Committee was reviewing the original discussion. I think the original number was 124. Rick? Oh, hold on one second. Rick's here, is assistant town manager. He'll refresh it better than I can.
Do we have a mic?
So the cost of the project, as Peter said, is $134 million. We've already have an authorization for $8.5 million from a previous town meeting, and we also have some other funding sources of about $10 million that we intend to put towards the project to reduce the borrowing. So the borrowing will be 134 less, so 125, about $115 million.
I see. But will the authorization actually be for the full 134, or will it be for that smaller figure?
For the smaller figure.
For the smaller figure. Okay.
But the cost remains 134.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. One of the reasons why I just wanted to mention this, and I'm sure folks are going to get into this later, is that the authorization, the fact that the bonds are authorized for 134, does not compel the selectmen to borrow 134. It gives them the ability to go up to 134. And the reason why I mention that is that I know that the Friends of Our Island Home and the folks from the Community Foundation, are I think pretty determined that if this comes through, that they'll be doing pretty extensive fundraising efforts to try to raise some of the money to pay for this total cost, which would therefore reduce the amount of the necessary bonds. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. Peter, can you but assuming that it's 134 million, right? We'll assume that, right, being the finance guy, right? We'll assume the worst, right? Assuming that, Peter, can you tell me an example of what a homeowner of a $2 million value home oh God, it's Nantucket. Whenever I see these numbers, right, of a $2 million value home, which is like everybody's home, right, can expect to pay as an increase in their taxes.
We're talking about an assessed value of $2 million, not a market value of $2 million.
Right.
Okay. Assessed value of $2 million, qualifying for the residential exemption, which most of us should qualify for. It would be approximately $293 per year increase in taxes.
203 during the term of the bonds, and the term of the bonds
For
will
the
be
20,
like
20 or 25 years. We're not sure yet what the length will be.
I get it. $293 per year.
Yes.
And Peter, what are the terms? Oh, maybe you just told me that. So you're not sure how long the bonds would run for, but it's for, and the warrant article doesn't specify that it has to be for 25 or 30 years, or is that going to be clarified at town meeting?
I think it's going to be between 20 and 30. We know that, but I don't think it's specified in the warrant.
And finally, considering what the average year-round resident pays in taxes on island, how does that amount compare to other counties' yearly tax amounts in New England? Okay,
this is interesting. We are at $3.28 per $1,000 of valuation, assessed valuation. The median in Massachusetts is $12.81. Some communities in Massachusetts are charging us over $20 per thousand. We have the 5th lowest tax rate in the state, with the numbers running from $2.25 per thousand up to $21.12 at the high end. Edgartown is lower than we are. Chatham is higher. We're always sometimes compared to those two, so it's interesting. But we're number 5 out of the multitude of towns and hamlets in the state.
Thank you. As a matter of fact, my hometown, I live in Marlborough, and we're at 13, so we're kind of like we're right in the middle. Whenever I hear the tax rate here, I'm always astonished. But of course, it's a function of the assessed value, right? Because you have such a high value. Bob, I'm back to you. Bob.
Oh, I thought you skipped people.
You and members of our Friends of Our Island Home met with the developers of a new skilled nursing facility on Martha's Vineyard over 2 years ago. As a matter of fact, I'm watching that being built. Every other week, I go to the island that must not be named, right? Which I don't want to mention the name. Can you share with us your impression of their design and approach, and what were the important takeaways from that meeting?
Yes, we've had this question in previous sessions. So there's many differences between the model on Martha's Vineyard versus here. First of all, it's called a small home greenhouse model, and it's designed to have 5 separate pods, 5 separate homes. It is, the other differences are, they are a nonprofit company, and we're a municipally owned, town-owned construction. The other differences come up in cost, where here in Nantucket, we have a lot of extra costs involved in procurement and ordering, and because of what other people, the architects, have said about bringing things off island, the distance that we have and things like that. So it's really like apples and oranges, very different model.
Both in terms of the style of it.
The style
and because they're a 501c3, they're not the town.
Correct.
They're not constrained by some of the bidding rules and some of the labor rules and a bunch of other things.
Absolutely.
Okay. And now, how many people get admitted into our island home? Can anyone apply from off island?
How are people admitted to the facility? I'm going to pass that to Karen.
Hello, everyone. Great question, and I think, before I answer that question, I'd just like to say that the best way to think about life as a senior is to make sure that you have choices, right? I mean, it's so important to all of us. And we want to make sure that people that live here, that have families here, have a choice to stay here and be here and live out their senior years. So there are various ways that you can be admitted to the facility. And most often there is a referral process. So a patient may be in a hospital, there may be a referral come through to our island home, and there's an assessment completed, usually through the social worker, the nursing team, to see if certainly, the care from our island home would be appropriate. But it's really all about the resident's choice, where they want to be. And I can tell you, the best outcomes occur when residents are around their families, their friends, their loved ones. So, that's critically important. The other piece is when you think about long-term care, and Nate will speak to our short-term rehab, which has just blossomed over the last 2 years, and it was very important to us. But when we think about long-term care, when you can think about it not being in a crisis mode, and you start to think about, is this something that I perhaps need? Maybe I can't be at home, or maybe your loved one just can't be home alone anymore and perhaps needs some care. We do have referrals come in where residents are at home, and they come into our island home and they take a look at us and take a look at our services, and that's another way as well. So we're really open to anyone who really needs the care, and hopefully we'll be there to service our seniors for many years to come.
And do you have a sense of what percentage of the folks who go to our island home are there because they're coming directly from home, as opposed to the percentage that is being discharged typically from the Nantucket Hospital?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't have the percentages. It's more, I can say definitely that it's higher, that residents are coming in from a referral source like an acute care hospital. But over the last 2 years, I know we've seen, residents come in from their home. So we're seeing both, but definitely a higher admittance rate from from a hospital and acute care.
And by the way, and one of the reasons why I mention this, okay, so personal story, my mother died in a nursing home, and went to the nursing home after years of making my father promise her, Phil, don't ever send me to a nursing home, please. But then she broke her hip, and my father was taking care of her at home. She had some memory issues, and so she ended up in the nursing home. But one of the reasons for that, I believe, and one of the reasons why the numbers are different here than they are on the mainland, is because it's our island home. So you end up not staying until the last possible moment in your home, because the dread of going to the nursing home is so terrible. Because what is a nursing home? Until I went to our island home, I thought I knew. I thought there were like 100, 150 beds, and a bunch of people kind of, sitting in kind of wheelchairs that weren't designed for it and kind of like hanging over on the side. And of course, so you'd never want to go there. And no one would ever want to visit you there because it was so depressing. It was terrible. And I guarantee you, and as I said, I've been to 50 or 60 of these, that's what a nursing home is, except our island home.
So I've been
Except
to
our island home.
over...
So I just mentioned, right?
Yeah, I've been to over 150 facilities in the state of Massachusetts in my 35 years of nursing, and what you have here is so incredibly unique. It's like nothing I have ever seen, the sense of community. You're not a number when you live at our island home. You're a person. You're not a diagnosis. And I can speak from experience that you don't see that everywhere off island. So, I really treasure that. And thank so many of the people that work there and make that happen, so.
So, Bob, I have a question that I don't understand, because I should have asked these questions before. I'm supposed to be asking you, what percentage of folks at our island home have a local connection? With an example of for someone.
Sure. So along the lines of...
See, now he knew what he was supposed to say. I just didn't know how I was supposed to get him to say it. All right.
I think you're going to hear the same message from all of us. The beauty of this, our island home, is everything is local. And I actually did a demographic study because this question came up. So at the time, it was about a month ago, out of 38 patients in the residents in the building, every single one of them was a local Nantucket person. 25 of them were what we call, long-timers, had been there like I'm going to offer, we don't count for anything if you weren't them. And the other 15 had moved here, had family here. So the point is, to the question, I think, is this is and will always be a local facility. Well, the question came up if you have a parent or someone coming from out of state, and that we will always have ability to do that as well. And to Karen's point, we've together been in, facilities all over the state. It is so different. The stories that you hear from people who come, live here and come into the facility, Kathy knows, and we all get to know them. We all feel like family, and that's what's so special about this place. And it's hard to describe if you haven't lived it or haven't been there. And so I think that was the question. It's a local facility and always will be.
Which is why most of the people in this audience have been there.
Exactly.
Right? Which is why, that's Kathy Greeter. I remember, her family was there when I met my friend Allison Forsgren, who I think was dying later on. My old co-host on our wonderful Frank and Mary TV shows from a long time ago. So I was, for a long time, Allison and I had this show called I have this make-believe couple that I would always talk about at the senior center, Frank and Mary, and their kids, Peter, Paul, and Mary Jr. And I would always say, if you're old enough to get the joke, you're old enough to be my client. And we had this show that was really devoted to, issues surrounding seniors. And I remember, I always figured, who would ever watch these shows, But a lot of people. But then one day, I was renting my car at Young's. Mr. Young is an old friend, and I walked out of Young's, and there were these two older guys, and I say older, like my age, right, across the street on the park bench, and one of these guys said, you look a lot fatter on television, which was one of the. So I knew that people were watching the show. It was great. So Bob, can you give us a brief of what you see happening in the Nantucket community regarding senior care?
Yeah, I think what this question is referring to, we're seeing the same thing on Island that we're seeing, frankly, statewide and nationally, which is an increasing percentage of elders over age 65, people living longer with higher acuities, managing chronic diseases. And there is what we call a continuum of care model on the island. And there are other services that we work with collaboratively. I'm looking at Amy Lee from the hospital, for example, Nantucket Cottage Hospital, what a great resource to have here on island. We have outpatient services, we have palliative care, we have home care, we have Sherburne Commons and independent living, and we have Nantucket, and we have our island home, And I think the point here is, in that continuum of care model, what we've seen across the country and in the state and here in Nantucket is that is a necessary component to make sure we have that when you need it. We really couldn't exist without it. And so we're seeing that trend over time, people living longer, coming in sicker, and we're proud to be able to have that nursing home available, as I said, to work collaboratively with everybody on the island. It's a very important part of the continuum of care.
Yes, an absolutely necessary part, because there's a point at which you can't. There's nothing, unless there is a skilled nursing facility, you just can't be here.
Correct.
And you can't be here. And who wants to be on that boat, right? To the other side. I don't mean to Martha's Vineyard. I mean to the real other side, right? Karen Bean. I didn't do that right. Karen Bain. I apologize.
Oh, no problem.
As the chief nursing officer at EF Senior Care, if our island home no longer, in your opinion, if our island home no longer exists here, what would be the options for seniors who need nursing care and any local resident needing rehab?
Well, it would be extremely limited when you think about, the services that are being provided at our island home if it no longer existed. For example, you think about visiting nursing services, and we know that it's limited. They're experiencing some of the same issues with, having the appropriate number of staff to be able to care for residents in their home. You could think of hiring staff, caregivers 24/7 to be in the home, and that brings about its own concerns. Where is the rehab? And certainly through, VNA services and outpatient services, it could be provided, but it would be extremely limited. And when it becomes a safety issue in the home, and people need supervision and that 24/7 care, You know, I get very concerned about that, our island home not being available to provide that. It's worrisome to me.
And by the way, so I've had these situations occur on Nantucket with several clients who did 24/7 home care. That's about $250,000. And for those folks who don't have that kind of change hanging around, and therefore need to try to qualify for Mass Health, the Massachusetts name for the Medicaid program, in order to try to pay for that, you'll never get. Mass Health will not pay for 24/7 care. They'll pay for a percentage of that care. And the care is not great. But the main thing is, so that maybe you can get away with, instead of paying $250,000, you're paying $200,000 for 24/7 care. So there is no, the home care option for the folks who really need skilled nursing facilities, it just doesn't work unless the numbers are just astronomical. I'm sorry, I just had to kind of throw that in.
Can I just make one more comment as well? You know, certainly what I've seen, and it really, you know, needs to be at the forefront here, is sometimes social isolation that can happen, can really trigger, you know, some major diagnoses like depression. You know, if you think about your weekend plans and during the week and what you look forward to, and sometimes, and most of the time, it's being with other people, right? And it certainly provides that cognitive stimulation as well. But having that person that you can talk to, you know, I've seen it do so much good for people. And certainly, you know, wrapped into all of that, nutrition, 3 meals a day, eating better, you know, being out in a community that, you know, you can jump into whatever you need to, or not, but just to have people around you, you know, certainly helps with preventing that social isolation, which can be so devastating in so many cases.
And of course, there's the Wheelers.
There's the Wheelers.
There's the Nantucket
You might have
Wheelers.
seen them around.
Another astonishing thing. Just
That's amazing.
What nursing home has the Wheelers?
Wheelers,
Give me a
right.
break. Craig.
I'm ready for you.
You know, see, architects are right there with lawyers in terms of people get trashed, like just all the time. It's just the way it goes. Craig,
Not until today.
What is the projected date for completion of the new building if they pass the bond issue and get the vote with town meeting and the vote?
Right. Just one thing. As an architect, I need a fidget spinner. So this is my fidget spinner. This is a model of the existing R Island home, which was built in 1980. There's actually one of these wings on this building was built in 2000. So the original building was even smaller. You hold this, Peter. This is
low tech. You know, usually the architects below in, you got these big pictures, you know, and there's a big 3D. No. This is low tech. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's a good scale representative of this meets today's standard for skilled nursing facility. And Peter, can you help me? Hold them side by side. Don't take it away from me.
Yeah, he's got to move it so it's 3D, right?
There
So
you
it
go.
shows it's really 3D.
So again, this is building for the future as a scale representative. Thank you. So the question of construction. So if we pass a town election, all the work, all the bids are actually in hand today. So once the town votes, the contract for the contractor will be signed. All the procurement, ordering of equipment will start immediately with the goal of breaking ground in September of this year. It's going to take about 26 months to construct the entire project, which would mean we would open in October of 2027. Probably there'll be a little period where the contractor is done, we're ordering equipment, we're setting up, we're being ready to move in, and then the residents would be moved over, hopefully in a very simple day, moved from one facility to the next in December of 2027.
Thank you. And I did. I love those visuals. I thought those were great. Why are there only 45, Bob, why are there only 45 beds in our island home?
I think along with the trend that you're seeing, I think the reason for that was, I look back at some statistics. When the building was originally built, there's probably half the number of elders in terms of population. And I think the concept there, as we've talked about, was long-term chronic care. So I think it was meant to serve that population. As we're growing, as you could see from the models that Craig pointed out, not only do we need more space, but if people didn't know this, we have 12 rooms that are built to be oversized, meaning they could become semi-private rooms in the future. There's a state law that says you can increase census by 10% or 12 beds, whichever is larger.
You have 12 rooms in the proposed new
building.
facility.
Yes, that's correct. So at some point, if we do need a larger building, we can do that without any additional capital cost at all. The rooms are ready to go, and you do not need to go through a determination of need. You could just notify the state, and that's something that, as Craig would, free architect's term, that's future-proofing the building.
Right.
So I can only surmise why it was the original 45. That's sort of an old view, but we're fixing that now.
Okay, thank you. Craig or Bob, will there be room for short-term rehab? And is this new service to be offered?
Yeah, so from an architect's perspective, all the rooms are flexible. Any level of care can be occurred across the whole facility. So continuing the service of short-term rehab is a huge benefit, but our facility is flexible. One of the things that's a feature in the facilities, we're building in patient lift systems in every room. So for assistance and mobility issues, not necessarily for short-term rehab, but just a safety and again, using that word, future-proofing and best practice, which prevents resident falls and assists the staff in any transfer of a resident. So a lot of flexibility. All the rooms have that capability.
Nathan, occupational therapist. You haven't gotten to talk very much. That's where they put you in the script. You know, there's nothing I can do about it. Can you give us some insight into what you experience with the residents in your work?
Yeah, so it's been about 2 years that we've been staffing the facility, and we staff with occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. When we first arrived, there wasn't a strong program, and the point of bringing us on board was to develop a stronger program to address some of the therapy needs that weren't being met prior.
Nathan, can you keep your mic close?
Oh, absolutely.
Good, thank you.
And over the past 2 years, we've definitely seen significant growth in the services from a rehab perspective that we're providing for the long-term population, but also for the short-term population, and we've seen that grow as well. In numbers, you know, and I've heard a lot of feedback from the community that people have been pleased with what we've been providing. And I think, you know, in talking with Bob and a lot of the other members up here about the potential of a newer, more updated building, that would only allow us more possibility to provide better services for these patients as time goes on, and to continue to meet the changing needs of the aging population. And I know we've talked about it a little bit. When I first came over here, I was supposed to be a temporary staff member, and I was going to stabilize the building and help provide staff, and then move along and continue on with my role as an area director.
See, this is like most of the people who now live here. The same thing happened to them. They were here for a little while, but not, right?
It's interesting how that happens, and it's been said a lot, but this is a very special place. I've been in healthcare for 23 years. Much like most of these people up here, I've worked in many facilities. This is a very unique facility, and the patients are wonderful. They're wonderful to work with. They've really done exceptionally well with consistent therapy within the building. Pretty much every day that I arrive at the building and I open up that gym door, there's a line. and there's 2 or 3 people, and they're ready to come in, and they're smiling and happy, both long and short term. And it's something that I do look forward to, and I would look forward to continuing that in a new facility as well.
And Arthur, can I just add a couple
Yes,
things?
please.
We worked really closely with Nate, and the design of the new physical therapy space has space for occupational therapy, you mentioned. But what that means is, there's a little kitchenette to replicate, are you ready to go home from your skilled nursing? You want to talk on those features?
Sure, yeah. When the original building was built, it was not designed for healthcare today. And rehab was still kind of in its infancy in the 80s when this building was constructed as it is now. And so it was never set up properly to serve this population and for the needs of an occupational therapist or a speech therapist. In the new facility, the rooms themselves are going to be set up to allow for treatments to occur in the room. The gym itself could be nearly twice the size of what we have now with modern equipment, which would help us better serve the needs of the patients. Additionally, we talked about setting up, was it like a kitchen, an occupational therapy kitchen, and almost like a transitional apartment where we could extend that occupational therapy into that environment and really have these patients practice before they go home to the community, the ones that are short-term and are making that transition back to the community to make sure that they're transitioning safely. And that's a limitation right now. We don't have those facilities available, and it's something that's necessary.
And by the way, go to any other nursing home. Go to any of these other big nursing homes. You just won't find occupational therapy, physical therapy. It will be like minimal, especially for long-term care residents. And I know from having gone to a lot of these nursing homes, it's just a function of A, size, and they're busy and they're trying to coordinate all these people and all this jazz, and B, it's for profit. So those are the people that they cut, right? And for folks, for a lot of my clients who've got memory issues, who are there, who are not short-term even, but they're long-term, they still benefit tremendously from having those kinds of services, from having occupation and physical therapy. Among other things, there's a lot of data on the fact that in folks who've got memory issues really slows the rate of decline if you've got this kind of constant intervention with physical therapy and occupational therapy. So it's just wonderful. There's Bob. I'm going to move to you. Okay. I think. I'm sorry. I lost my place. Is there thank you. Is there a hospice room at our island home currently? And if so, what would this space look like in the new building? And by the way, it's great that you're building that. This is a crucial piece of any skilled nursing facility.
Yeah, I think Craig and I are going to tag team this one as well. But I would just say again, along with the trend here, we really the other beauty of our island home is everything we're saying is we're really servicing all things to all people. And I think it's very important because we've talked about, there was a question earlier about, are you going to have a separate section for rehab? Well, no. Every room is equipped here, and that's the beauty of the new facility. We'll have so much more capability, and I think Brenda Johnson mentioned the person-centered care. All of these are concepts that we're starting and we're improving upon, and we're really building out these wonderful programs, and that's the beauty of being able to move into the new building. So Craig can give you the specific about what the hospice room is going to look like.
Yeah, the hospice room is one of our typical rooms. It's no different than any of the other rooms. It can function, but if the need for hospice occurs, adjacent to that room that's identified as hospice, adjacent to that is a family room that has a direct connection between the resident room and a place for the family. You can spend as much time with your loved one in the room, but if you need a break but you want to stay close, or you want to talk to a nurse or any caregiver, you don't have to actually have the discussion in front of the resident. You can actually be close and next door. It's also a place that has a television, just like all the other rooms. It also has its own bathroom. So family members could stay over if they choose. So we have the accommodation. So it's a fantastic feature in the facility.
It's just a wonderful thing. It's just because I always, as they tell me, rich or poor, no one should have to die alone in a place where they don't know anybody. No one. Barbara Craig, what other improvements will be made for the residents' quality of life? For example, residents still have to share a room and a bathroom.
So once again,
now.
we'll share this one. So just to compare and contrast, I was talking to Peter, the administrator. Hi, Peter. We're at a census of 42 today in the current building. Every resident, other than 3 rooms, has to share a room with another person. We also only have 3 showers, 2 showers, so group showers. They don't have their individual shower. So the space already is constrained. And again, we're doing a wonderful job. We're making improvements. But the new building, by contrast, Craig is going to explain all the extra space that's available, including bathrooms in the single rooms, all single rooms, and you can sort of add to that, Craig, as the architect.
Yeah, I think one of our guiding principles from the beginning was the patient or resident-centered care, but also focus on choice, privacy, and dignity. And that is the mantra of this new facility. Every resident has their own room. There are rooms that have adjacent doors, not just the hospice room. We have rooms that are adjacent that, say, a couple or siblings, they don't have to share the same bedroom, but they can be next door with a door that connects between 2 rooms. Each room has its own bathroom and space for the wheelchair, space for a walker, space for someone to visit. It's not like Michelle and Peter, what they have to do when a visitor comes and move furniture in and out just to accommodate the family to visit. I think I heard in one of the editorials of sharing a room is a luxury. Today's world, that's standard of care, but it's also the ability for family to visit privately with their loved ones and not sharing the room. We have lots of spaces where the residents can connect as community and have socialization. We have lots of choices. We have, there's code minimum requirements of activity rooms, places to do games, puzzles, programs. There's also quiet activity where you don't have to be in your room. There's active, maybe there's a movie night, TV night. We have lots of variety of spaces, and then going to that flexibility, the new living room, which is required by code, is next to the dining room. They're 2 separate rooms, but we have an ability to open up between the 2 rooms to make a large gathering, so a Thanksgiving event or any other event that you would want to open up to the community a little bit more. I'm sorry, just want to add one other important point, infection control. We haven't touched on this, but the beauty of having all single private rooms, and the state is going to be mandating this, we're moving in that direction, mitigating infections and outbreaks, as we all know, living through COVID. So having separate single private rooms, not only will it allow us to manage the isolation better, we won't have to split people up, it'll reduce the infection rates. It'll also be helpful. We were talking earlier about, we sort of joke about musical chairs and moving rooms around when we get new admissions, male-female situation, all of that. And the other great thing about the new building is the outdoor space. You have adjacent outdoor areas, including in the dining room. So if someone's a wandering patient, let's say memory issues, cognitive decline, they can walk around the facility, not get lost, come right back to the beginning. They can go outside and enjoy the air. It's just a beautiful improvement in their quality of life all the way around. Wouldn't you say, Craig? And the design is absolutely beautiful.
So I'm just going to mention, I only have 4 questions left, and then we're going to open it up to the public. So first, if you wanted to ask a question but really need to go to the bathroom, you can if you want, because we're not going to break, because we need this to be continuous for an hour and a half. And we're going to have mics for people to speak from. So as I'm going to mention to folks, you can't ask a question unless you got a mic, okay? Peter, what will happen to the land on which our island home sits when the residents are relocated to the new building?
Well, despite rumors to the contrary, the land that's there now will be used for a new senior center. I was on the senior center committee. A building has been designed and that would be forthcoming to that location. Our current senior center is way, way too small, and it's also in an area that's has coastal resiliency problems. So we really need to do something about that, and this would make a perfect place for seniors to be able to see the water again. And one of the complaints people had about moving the senior center was that how nice it was where it is. And that's true, it's beautiful, but it'll still be available specifically for seniors, even though the building will be used for the seniors as well as maybe for meetings, et cetera, where we don't have enough conference rooms, et cetera. But that's the plan. There's no plan to sell the property or to build homes on it or anything like that.
So I gather that's why I'm getting this next question. I assume this is what the rumor always is. To be clear, the land will not be sold to a developer?
Correct.
Thank you. Peter, what will happen if the article for the New Island home gets voted down?
Well, the select board has said that this is the last trail here. If it gets voted down, first of all, if it gets voted down, the cost of doing it down the road is just going to be more prohibitive than it is now. So it's got to pass, or we will essentially be closed down at some point in the next several years because we don't meet the codes. But the state has been very lenient towards us, I believe, because they know that we're in the process of building a new building, or hopefully building a new building.
And they know it'd be a great model for everybody else if this works. So we're gonna now open it up to questions, but we have a shill in the audience who's gonna do the first question, and that is our friend Allison Forsgren. So Allison. No, I can't.
Yep, it is on, Paul.
Hi. Oh,
Do you want to step up closer to Arthur? Maybe no, this is fine.
We heard you fine that second time.
okay,
We
perfect.
heard you fine that second time. That's good.
So last February, just recently, Friends of Our Island Home met with the Community Foundation, and we were thankful that they allowed us to have a fund, a new Our Island Home Capital Campaign Fund, which has already had some donations, but what we plan to do is to go out into the community and to get sponsorships to help defray the cost of the island home to taxpayers. So we're hoping for the billionaires to come running to us, but in reality, we're going to be getting a steering committee together and approaching people who have contacts, who might have a person that they'd like to name a wing for, or a garden for, or a geothermal, heating system for, and not that that's going to take care of paying for the entire Our Island home, but it will be an avenue for people who want to contribute and want to make an impact in the community to have a way to do that. So it just happened in February, at the end of February, and it's been hard to get a billionaire to sign up because it hasn't passed yet. So we're hoping that this will pass at town meeting and at the ballot, and we can then get to work to find people to help us out and to make this really important community facility available to all of us and our families down the way. So keep your eyes open for more.
And I know that Sunny Daly at the Community Foundation is really committed to this, and I've talked to her a lot about this. Some of you may know she and I are now doing a series on NCTV, best local cable station I've ever seen. But we're doing a series on because we're interviewing the heads of the various nonprofits here on the island, with the hope that folks here will ultimately support them through legacy giving. And there may be several different kinds of strategies that folks could employ in order to support the island home, either with an immediate check or by, for example, buying some of those bonds, if the bonds are for sale, with the commitment that that's going to be part of their legacy, is that when they die, they're going to forgive that bond. So there are a number of things there are a number of creative ways to help reduce the taxpayer burden in the long run, which really we can't even start to open up unless there's an understanding that the deal's going forward, right? Because people won't give to nothing. You give to a real a real project. So with that in mind, questions from anybody, and who has the mic? Do we have the one mic? Okay, questions from anybody in the audience? Questions from anyone?
Yeah, we have one right over here.
Oh, another hidden person in the audience. Brenda Johnson.
Can I
Yes,
be a,
another.
I'm not a shill.
This is a bad sign that I've been coming here too long, though. I recognize entirely too many people
Right,
now in the
right.
audience.
Well,
Brenda.
first of all, I want to say thank you very much, Kathy and Allison, for putting this together. It was just perfect. Really good job, and all the speakers. But the thing that I wanted to mention, because I still continue to sing the Island Home song around the island, and on Wednesday the 16th, we have an Island Home presentation at the fairgrounds for Rotary. So if you want to have another go at this presentation, shorter version, that's be our guest. But a couple things, Karen, on I think that people are not clear on the fact that, yes, it's we get referrals to the Island Home, yes, it's a nice thing to have an option. But I think it's important to talk about the fact that this is a skilled nursing facility and that there's criteria that allows you to come into the Island Home. You just can't go because it's a nice place to go. So if you, and the hospice room is a big deal because that's accessing your hospice benefit, which is not able to, we're not able to do that right now. These are all things that were discussed 15 years ago when they did the evaluation to justify having a new Island Home. And then the other thing, Nate, is from the rehab perspective, I don't think that people understand specifically what an occupational therapist does and a speech therapist as it relates to getting people to go home. I mean, we're all used to, you know, I worked in home care for 20 years, but we're used to the physical therapy, and everybody understands getting up and walking, but nobody understands the role of the OT and how that impacts your ability to go home. So if you could, and then one last thing for you, Craig.
Brenda's always like this. So now, do I have to start writing this down, Brenda?
No.
All right. All right.
So
But fortunately, you're only giving one question to each person.
I am.
That's great. Okay.
So the thing about the plans for the new Island Home is they are amazing. They're just amazing. I know that the group that the town put together to look at it, the patients, the family members, the residents, what a wonderful job you've done. And we're very fortunate. You know, the Island Home now is 22,000 square feet down by the water. And this is what, 56, 58,000? 61,000. Well, it should be because that's the code. But it's nice to see patients, residents being able to go into their rooms in their wheelchairs, get up, go to the bathroom, close the door, turn around, go to their bed, and watch TV without having to have help. So well done. All right, so I'll be quiet now.
Karen, Brian,
Sure.
Nathan, any
Sure.
order?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thanks, Brenda. So our Island Home is a skilled nursing facility, and to access your Medicare benefit, you know, there needs to be some sort of skill that needs to be performed by the clinical team or the rehab team to access this benefit. So what we do is we take a look at you know, all comorbidities, diagnoses, what the residents need, and what the clinical team will have to do to meet those needs, right? So there are criteria, you're absolutely right. We have to take a look at that. We need to make sure that they qualify, that they have a skilled need. And you know, for example, you know, somebody may need management of a chronic disease, like say congestive heart failure, right? And perhaps they've had medications that have been changed, or you know, they've had some issues with you know, some retaining of fluid and things like that, and that's an acute phase of a chronic disease, right? So under the skilled guidelines, would it be considered skilled? Would the clinical team be able to meet those needs, and would it meet criteria? The other pieces that are a little bit more obvious, I think, as far as, you know, needing, you know, a skilled care would perhaps be someone who needs IVs, IV antibiotics, certainly any type of rehab would qualify as well. If somebody requires wound care, whether they've had a surgical, non-surgical wound, what will the nurse have to do to manage that wound and what's involved in that process. So I know Nate can speak to this as well, but, we look at everything. I mean, it's really, you want to look at the person as a whole and what the acute issue is, but what are the underlying chronic issues too, that we need to make sure we have a balance of everything. But, certainly we look at that skill criteria to meet the need. But, and we do that in collaboration. It has to be a collaborative approach, with therapy and with nursing. So, Nate, you want to?
Sure. Yeah, so it's true. Most of the patients that we see are complex medical. So they may be coming in with one particular diagnosis, a fall and a fracture, but they're much more complicated than that. So even though we may be skilling them from a medical standpoint or skilling them with our therapy services, we're addressing several comorbidities. Often they might have cardiac disease and COPD, arthritis in multiple joints, or memory impairment. It's often that we have patients with swallowing dysfunction or speech difficulty. So these are things that we see and that we're treating on a daily basis. And it's true when you think of therapy services, everybody says PT, right? Oh, I have PT. And everybody's always going to PT. But there is physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy that we provide. And they're all very different. So physical therapy is typically addressing your transferability, your mobility deficits. They're often addressing patients that have lower extremity injuries. They're working on strengthening the lower body. Occupational therapy is a little bit more holistic. We're looking at people and their ability to function, their ability to bathe and dress themselves, their ability to feed themselves. They may have had a stroke or another illness and they're left with paralysis on half of their body. So you can imagine how devastating that can be and how large of an impact that can have on their ability to care for themselves. So OT has a big role in addressing those deficits so that they can function at their highest level. Whether they're a long-term patient in the facility or they're going home to the community, that's irrelevant. We want them to function at their highest level. So we're seeing patients that are short-term and they return to the community, but we're also seeing patients every single day that are long-term that need our services as well. We also have speech therapy that's addressing swallowing dysfunction and people that have cognitive deficits. They have a specialized education on how to help address those cognitive deficits as well. They may be working on speech also, hence the name. So somebody that's had a stroke or has some sort of cognitive deficit and needs help in that manner as well. So I think when you look at the whole picture, all three of those disciplines are necessary. And as you look at our long-term care population and short-term care population with all of the comorbidities that they have, it's clear that each discipline is necessary. And we have expanded those services over the last 2 years at our island home. And at present, we're there 6 days a week. So at any given time, there's maybe 1 day a week that therapy's not in the building. But again, we're always available. And often on that day that we're not in the building, people are reaching out and asking questions and asking for support. And we're there to help with that as well.
And Bob.
Just one quick comment to that teamwork. What Nate is a very humble guy. I'm looking at Peter and Michelle. Nate has become a fan favorite at the nursing home. And what's nice for the staff is we have built around, to your question, Brenda, you can be skilled in either nursing or rehab or both. And what Nate has been able to teach all of us is that this is a team approach. And it gets back to that holistic approach. I just didn't want to mention that because the quality of care, the teamwork, the improvement in the overall morale in the building, both residents, families, and staff, has just gone up exponentially since we've had the rehab team. And Nate's a large part of that, so I just want to give a shout out to him. He's a very humble guy, he won't say that.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to.
An insert from Kathy Greeter.
I'd also like to say something about Peter Holden as the administrator of the Island Home. I think he's been wonderful. When my mom was there, we were going through several temporary ones, and Peter walked in the door, and he's been hands-on from the day he arrived. You don't see him sitting in the office by himself. He's out there on the floor working, and I think he's just showing that leadership to the rest of the group. And that's how, we can talk about the building and how wonderful everything is, but it's the team that works there, whether it's the aides or the administration. They're the people who help, and they're the ones that make our Island Home what it is.
But he's another one of those guys, though. He's gone native. They get here, and and all next thing you know, they lose it. They go native, right? So, Craig.
Yes.
Oh no, I thought there was a third question. I thought there was one to Craig also.
The compliment. That's good.
All right.
We have a friend here, a friend here, a friend here, a friend there.
Sure.
And then I think a friend somewhere too.
Right, so I'll be very quick. I wanted to say thank you for doing this. I also wanted to say that part of the reason I came tonight was that I went to the info session a couple weeks ago at the Public Safety Building, where the videos and the graphic were just stunning. So I don't know if those are out there elsewhere in the world that you can direct people, the audience, to see, but they made a real impact on me. And they are gorgeous, by the way, so kudos to the architects. The other comment I would make is to Karen Bain's comment about what happens when you lose a nursing facility. It is really, I think maybe, Karen, you're understating, it's devastating to a community. Absolutely devastating, and I know this because I've worked in post-acute care and in rural places. I think that post-acute care has a really unique position in the overall healthcare system, and I would like to ask very specifically if you could drill down and help people here tonight understand what it would mean literally if DPH closed the building and you didn't have another place to send people here on Nantucket. It would affect everything from home care to the hospital and parts in between. And I think that's a critical piece of information to appreciate.
And Bob, I know that you were talking about the fact that that this really is part of an integrated system here, which is kind of an exciting feature of Nantucket. Can you speak to that?
Well, first of all, I can speak for off-island, and the same thing would happen here. And to your point, Sarah, every place where a nursing home is closed, first of all, let's start with the hospital. They become overcrowded. The emergency room, people are waiting right now for beds because we are underbedded statewide, and it becomes a crisis. It becomes a crisis for patients who can't find a bed to go to. At the end of the day, that's why we're here. People need to be somewhere to continue post-surgery. We talk about chronic illnesses. The percentage of patients is increasing. They're getting sicker. They're older. So what would we do? In reality, we've talked about some of the family members I mentioned. We have folks who are at the facility now, and by the way, there's going to be an interview coming out in the Nantucket Current. There were 6 folks that were interviewed, and they told the story. There was one gentleman that was in Hyannis and had surgery, and he was told he's going to go to Spalding. He said, no, I want to come back to Island. I want to come back to our Island home. And it would just be a total inconvenience. Someone used the example of just getting off Island for one day to go visit someone off Island is the cost of the increase in taxes for the year. And if you get there and they cancel your family meeting, then what do? So it gets back to everything we've been saying. You lose that social connectedness. You lose that ability to go visit someone. We have people that are almost in tears talking about what might happen because they've been visiting every day. The gentleman that I had referred to that came to us from after he went to Cape Cod Hospital, his wife is visiting every day. And he's almost in tears. And he says, he was asking Craig the other day in a presentation, when's the building opening? But you're absolutely right, Sarah. We've been in those areas in Western Mass and rural areas where they've closed nursing homes, they've closed hospitals. The answer is people suffer. I mean, what do? They've got to go, miles away where no one can visit. They'll get the care eventually, but and I've placed people like you have on the other, discharging people to a facility. Every time we have to place them somewhere where that's not close to where they live, it literally, it really hurts you because it's nothing you can do. And that's happening elsewhere, and to your point, we don't want to have it happen here. So great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Good evening. My name is Jill Lentowski, and I can talk to this because I had a sister who I tried very hard to get into the island home. I jumped through hoops. I went through all this stuff. Diane Pearl was willing to be the doctor, all these things, but the fact is she had bipolar. So one of the things that you have not addressed here is how you're dealing with any kind of mental problems. That are people on Nantucket. There are people who all she wanted to do was come home here to die. Unfortunately, she was up in Saugus, and it was very difficult to get up there to see her. And this is something that I don't think that you people have addressed at all, is dealing with the mental capacities that some of these people have. Now, her bipolar was all dealt with medication, but yet we couldn't get her into the island home. So I think that this is something that needs to be addressed, and I don't think you have. And I also, for Peter, one of the things that I am not speaking as vice president of the Saltmarsh Center, which I am, but as a resident of Nantucket, I think that you should look at taking the old island home, having the land bank buy that property at full value to use that money to build the new one, because as much as the Saltmarsh Center would love to be in a bigger spot, that's a lot more money that we really don't have. And I think that that would be something that it could at least offset some of the money for the new island home. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. And Bob, do you want to speak to that? Or who wants to speak to that?
Sure,
Okay.
and I'm extremely sorry for what you've gone through. I mean, mental health, we're in a crisis here, right? There aren't enough facilities that are equipped to manage. It requires a lot of education. It's a specialty area. I mean, certainly what we've done in the past few years is to make sure that we had a mental health professional that was on board with us and that we could reach out to. And she would come out and visit the community and some of the residents. So, I certainly don't know the specifics of, your story, and I'm very sorry, but it's a crisis out there. And listen, we have to deal with it. We have to. When we look at a potential resident coming into the facility, we certainly look at all aspects of the care that's needed, and if we can provide those services. So although I can't speak to this specific case, we've got to do better. We have to do better when it comes to mental health. We have to. Some of the concerns with the current facility right now is security. And, residents that do have cognitive issues and that do wander, we have concerns about that. It's not an all-secured facility. Residents can come, and go out that front door, and, it keeps me awake at night. And this new facility, being able to provide those advanced security measures, where the environment which is going to be much more conducive to residents that have cognitive issues, mental health concerns. We've got to see it move in that direction. And, like I said, I'm tremendously sorry that you had to deal with that. But, you're right. We're not doing great. We're not doing great in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's not just on Nantucket. We have to do better. We really do.
And Peter, I'm just curious from the perspective of raising the additional money, which would also defray the cost of the RL. I'm just wondering, did the Finance Committee think about that, or is that discussion
It's really a
occurred?
town issue, and there's been a commitment made, but certainly commitments made can be changed. I think we have to look at every aspect of the project, but I think at this point, that's not on the table, but it could be going forward. I don't know.
And once again, I'll just mention, as I had mentioned earlier, that the vote to authorize the bonds doesn't require the selectmen to issue all of the bonds. So that to the extent that there's room to figure that out, or to try to change those numbers after the vote. Next question. Yes, sir. And you've already got the mic. Oh, this is good. Thank you.
My name's David Bernard, and I have a question regarding the design. Was there ever consideration to make the island home a two-story building instead of a spread-out ranch?
Excellent question. We looked at many studies. There's two aspects to a senior living facility. That is the kind of the tipping point where 2 floors can work, but when we're at 45 beds, that balance is hard. But it's a great question. We evaluated lots of, because it is an option.
Wouldn't it be millions cheaper for a two-story building regarding a spread-out ranch?
The question is probably, most of the time when you analyze different stories, we actually are building in a basement, and the basement has stairs and an elevator. Typically, if you just have a one-story building with no basement, then there's no stairs, there's no elevators. That's the easiest way to once you go to 2 floors, you have to have, in a building of our shape, you would have to add probably 2 elevators for backup, and then additional probably 4 stairs for egress, which adds cost. It's always a balance, but typically, cost-wise, 1-story simple building, repeated elements is less expensive.
And by the way, it is about 5 minutes to the end.
All right.
And I know, once again, we're sensitive to this just because I know that from the NCTV's perspective, they're going to be kind of limiting it to that. So I just want to see if is there another question?
Yes.
I'd like to get back to you, sir, then if we have time, but I'd like to get to this other question.
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Here you go, sir. Thank you.
And I forgot at the beginning to say, could you give your name before you?
I was just about to do that.
That's great.
Thank you.
I was. That's
You preempted
you know,
me.
I haven't practiced here. You know, I forgot.
All right, my name is Ted Giletti. So my question is, are our local resident doctors providing services to patients at our island home? Are they currently able to satisfy all the patient requirements? Do we need additional resources to cope with the new projected facility and the requirements thereto? How will that be managed? How will that be handled? Will it be outsourced to Mr. Eisenstein's firm? Or will we have the resources here on island to cope with that? And I'm not only talking about the doctors, but all the nursing staff, the administrative staff as well. One last point I just wanted to make, which actually dovetails with this gentleman's comment. If you look at Martha's Vineyard's construction, it is 2 stories. So when you get into discussions about extra stairwells and so on, I think that is actually marginal cost when you look at the total project. And I would ask, what are we thinking about in terms of where are all the staff going to be living? Have we thought about that? In Martha's Vineyard, their project includes, I think it's 70 beds for patients and 76 for workforce, which includes also nurses. We have no mention of anything about workforce, including medical staff. That's essential. Thank you.
I guess that's to Bob and Craig. If my recollection serves regarding that building that's being built on that other island, is some of that housing is also for the hospital and not just for the nurse skill, but I don't know that. That was my understanding.
Yeah, the greenhouse model is a single floor facility. The housing is multi-story, so that maybe
I can answer your other questions fairly quickly. Let me take those in rank orders. On the medical staff question, we have we have contracted with a medical director. Her name is Dr. Ann Esperito, and she comes and makes rounds to see all the patients in the facility. And it's been an excellent resource that's been added in about the last year or two. The primary care physicians in the community are still able to come in if they'd like, but the model works much better when we have one single person and she makes rounds. She's there 3 or 4 days a week. So that's number one. Number two, in terms of staffing, the model that we have currently, because of union negotiations and others, we're pretty much staffed up to 45 patients as we are currently in the current our island home. So the goal is when we move to the new building, we should not have to increase the clinical nursing staff as much. To your point, though, we will, obviously we'll still be recruiting. If we go to the 57 beds, we'll need to look at recruiting traveling nursing. But we're pretty well in a good condition. That gets back to Craig's point about being all on one floor. That's critical because we can keep the nursing staff based on one nursing unit and keep them pretty much the same as we are currently. So from a staffing perspective, we're in pretty good shape. From medical director supervision, we're in pretty good shape moving into the new building. And the interest of time, I'll stop because I think we have some closing comments.
I have to do a final announcement. If you'd like to revisit tonight's discussion or share it with someone who couldn't be here, NCTV has recorded this important forum. You can sign up for the NCTV newsletter at rnctv.org, OURNCTV.org, to be the first to know when the broadcast premieres on local channels 8 and 1072, just ahead of the annual town meeting. Kathy, would you like to share some final comments? Remember, this is the question that I asked her by mistake about an hour and a half ago. So would you like to share some final comments?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Thank you, Arthur. I'll begin by
end-of-life room sounds absolutely amazing, but I think the term hospice is maybe being used a little bit wrong. Hospice is, like you said, a benefit of your insurance, most commonly Medicare, that you have to choose to elect. We are very fortunate as VNA Hospice, the only Medicare, Medicaid qualifying agency on the island. We do contract with the facility now. So I jumped when Brenda was saying, well, you're gonna be able to elect your benefit because you can now, right now. And I think that this will be a great asset, but I really, as a hospice worker, would love if somehow or other the terminology can change to end-of-life room, because that's what it is, unless a client is electing their benefit.
An excellent point.
We agree 100%. Great comment.
That was a great extra, and thanks for that very speedy summary. Thank you. Kathy Greeter.
Thank you. So I'll begin by reading a quote from former Vice President Hubert Humphrey that has kept me and my small team steadfast on this topic. The moral test of a government is how that government treats those who are in the dawn of life, the children, those who are in the twilight of life, the elderly, and those who are in the shadows of life, the sick, the needy, and the handicapped. The mission of our Friends of Our Island Home is clear and deeply important. We're advocating for the residents of Nantucket's only skilled nursing facility. We are an independent organization not affiliated with the town of Nantucket. Our sole focus is to ensure that our island seniors continue to receive the compassionate, high-quality care they deserve right here on our island, their home. If you believe in this mission, there are ways to get involved. You can pledge your financial support or express interest in joining our capital campaign committee, should voters decide to say yes to saving our island home. You can learn more at friendsofourislandhome.org. And in closing, the truth is, none of us know when we or a loved one might need our island home. If it's but that's it. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Could I ask for a big round of applause for our great panel? I just have one quick thing. I want to thank Allison
Forsgren, my teammate who's been helping me through this, along with our Friends of our Island Home board members. And I've been very grateful to be on this journey with all of them. And don't forget, we have our capital campaign, our Island Homes capital campaign with Community Foundation. You'll learn more about that.
So that's the only bad news, is if you pass this, Kathy's going to be calling you for more money, right? That's just one of the, but that's the way it goes.
But thank you all for coming here tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you.